Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today, we are going to discuss the 5 highest grossing horror movies of 2026 so far. So let's get started. Number 5 on our list, we have Iron Lung, Markiplier's debut. So this one was directed by the insanely popular YouTuber Markiplier, also known as Mark Fishbach. It's an adaptation of the video game of the same name, and it perfectly encapsulates that thesis we just talked about. He took a page straight out of the playbook of classics like Alien, crafting an incredibly stifling, claustrophobic sci-fi horror experience. But what's truly mind-blowing here are the economics. You've got a microscopic $3 million production budget, and it yielded a massive $50 million box office haul. Just incredible word of mouth, and Markiplier's huge online popularity propelled this tiny micro-budget flick right past major traditional studio releases to secure a top 5 spot for the first half of 2026. Once you factor in the additional costs, that gap between those two numbers, that represents a ridiculously hefty profit margin.
The crucial takeaway here is that Iron Lung isn't just a one-off fluke. We are likely looking at the potential rise of the YouTube filmmaker trend. I mean, Iron Lung's ability to turn $3 million into $50 million has caught everyone's attention in the industry. Even if it gets bumped down the list as the year goes on, it's for sure going to remain one of the most profitable horror films of 2026. It's kicking off a super lucrative new wave, where digital creators are just entirely bypassing traditional studio gatekeeping and dominating the box office on their own terms.
Moving right along to our number 4 spot, we have 28 years later, The Bone Temple, a box office bomb.
This is the middle chapter in Nia DaCosta's highly anticipated post-apocalyptic zombie trilogy, and it really shows how raw numbers can be completely deceiving. Produced back-to-back with 2025's 28 Years Later, this continuation introduces some wild new concepts and really fleshes out that terrifying, gritty world we first fell in love with way back in 2002. So, The Bone Temple grossed $58 million at the box office. Sounds great, right? Especially compared to our last film, Iron Lung, which only made $50 million. But here's the catch. The Bone Temple had a hefty $63 million budget. When a movie costs more to make than it actually brings into the box office, and remember, that's before even factoring in the massive marketing costs, it actually loses a considerable amount of money. So despite sitting pretty at number 4 on the highest grossing list, this film is safely categorized as a huge box office bomb.
The drop-off for the studio here is honestly alarming. Last year, the first chapter of this new trilogy grossed well over $150 million. Fast forward to 2026, and The Bone Temple literally plunges down to just $58 million. What makes this financial nosedive so shocking is that the reviews for The Bone Temple were actually better than its predecessor. It wasn't a matter of poor quality at all. Audiences just simply didn't show up. And because of this massive box office struggle, the completion of this planned trilogy is currently in severe jeopardy.
Taking the bronze medal at number 3, it's Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Low risk, high reward.
Backed by heavyweights like director Lee Cronin and producer James Wan, this latest monster revival pulled in a very solid $89 million. That is an incredibly impressive gross, especially when you consider that the movie was made on a budget of just $20 million. Do the math, and that adds up to a pretty spectacular profit. Even when you account for the fact that a movie with James Wan and Blumhouse attached is naturally going to come with a very large, costly marketing campaign, $89 million guarantees the studio is walking away very, very happy.
But it missed smash hit status, and 3 main factors really dragged it down. First off, the critical reception was pretty putrid. Reviewers were constantly complaining about a bloated runtime and just a massive over-reliance on gross-out scares. But the real killer? Extreme brand confusion. Audiences were completely bewildered because this film had absolutely nothing to do with the 1930s Universal classic, and it certainly wasn't a continuation of the beloved horror action franchise starring Brendan Fraser. People didn't know what they were buying a ticket for, and that confusion definitively kept this movie from becoming a runaway blockbuster.
Sitting in the runner-up position at number 2, we have Send Help, Sam Raimi Returns.
This is a huge deal, folks, marking Nightmare Maestro Sam Raimi's first full horror movie since Drag Me to Hell all the way back in 2009. This grueling survival flick brought in a phenomenal $94 million. Raimi skips the supernatural entirely here, leaning heavily into his biting sense of humor and razor-sharp wit to terrify the audience. $94 million is a fantastic haul, especially for a January release. You know, that dump month where studios usually hide their expected failures. It totally got by on strong word of mouth and serious star power. However, with a $40 million production budget combined with massive marketing costs, that profit margin likely took a pretty heavy hit. So it's a hit for sure, but definitely an expensive one.
And finally, claiming the undisputed top spot at number 1, Scream 7, the slasher king. $207 million. Just let that sink in. This is an absolutely monumental take for a 30-year-old franchise. What's even more incredible is that production of this 7th installment was heavily clouded by behind-the-scenes controversy, but the fan base, they proved entirely bulletproof. They completely ignored the drama and flocked to theaters anyway.
To put this into perspective, Scream 7 impressively outgrossed its immediate predecessor, and it managed to pull off this incredible financial feat even without huge modern fan-favorite stars like Jenna Ortega in the cast. The sheer, unstoppable brand power of Ghostface carried this thing right to the top of the mountain. Taking a $45 million budget and turning it into over $200 million brings us right back full circle. This is exactly what we mean when we talk about the narrow margin of horror. It perfectly proves our core thesis. Scream 7 isn't just making its money back, it's generating a massive, undeniable profit for the studio. Because of this incredible return on investment, it pretty much guarantees that Ghostface will be slashing his way back onto our screens for another sequel eventually. No doubt about it.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The horror genre is financially and critically in a fantastic place right now. But the real question on everyone's mind is this: will another movie actually bump Scream 7 from the top spot by the end of the year? I mean, there are a plethora of upcoming flicks expected to hit big, and maybe, just like Iron Lung, there's an underdog out there ready to completely shock the industry. We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep watching the box office and stay curious.